Hello, and welcome to Spokane County Spotlight. I'm Commissioner Mary Kuney, and my guest today is Stephanie Curran, CEO of Spokane Public Facilities District. Stephanie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Before we get started, would you mind giving our audience a brief description of yourself, introduction, and talk about your role as the CEO of the Public Facilities District?
Sure, yeah, so I'm CEO of the Public Facilities District. We own and operate the arena, the convention center, the First Interstate Center for the Arts, and we're currently building the podium, formerly known as the Sportsplex. So basically we're our own little municipal corporation that generates economic impact into the community and obviously provides opportunities for entertainment and arts and sports and all kinds of things in our facilities.
Well, and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I actually grew up in Los Angeles, but I came here to go to Gonzaga, and I am undergrad and graduate school at Gonzaga. And I started my career in the hotel business here in Spokane. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to begin working for the Public Facilities Districts back in 2003. I've been an event manager for the PFD, and then an assistant general manager of 2 of our facilities, and general manager. And then I was named CEO just about 3 years ago.
Which is exciting, and I love the fact that it's, you grew up in the system of the Public Facilities District, so you understand it from the ground up.
Yes, definitely. It definitely, it helps me as a CEO because I have worked in most of the jobs that we have, so I know sort of where the employees are coming from and what some of our, trials and tribulations, and then obviously all the fun stuff too. So I think it helps me as a leader to have worked my way up. For sure.
And just since I know you a little bit, so I'm going to ask a few more questions. But
sure.
what brought you to Spokane?
Honestly, it was Gonzaga University, but what's really the real true story is I went to an all-girls Catholic high school in LA, and they promote the Catholic colleges a lot, and I actually had intended to go to a big school, a USC, which is a great school, and that's where I thought I was going to go. And then I went on college night, I went into the room where they were talking about Gonzaga. It just happened to be the room next door to the room that I was in for USC. And there was a little priest there, and he was talking about Bing Crosby and the carousel and ice skating at Riverfront Park, and I just thought that place sounds magical. And I just had this sense that I was supposed to be here. And literally, sight unseen, I changed my mind. I decided to come to Spokane. And full circle, now, I work in buildings that basically surround that beautiful park that was really kind of the main reason I came here.
I think that's a fascinating story.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that for a while. It is. It's a great story.
No, and we're glad you're here, and I think it's really important. And we've realized that we were probably at Gonzaga at the same time, but didn't run into each other then.
Yes,
so
exactly.
it's fun. So a couple of zags.
Yes.
So for our audience then, can you, who may not be familiar with the Public Facility District's role in our community, could you give us an introduction of your organization?
Sure. So we, like I said, we're our own little municipal organization, which means that we are a taxing authority. So we do receive some percentages of sales tax revenue that helps us sell bonds to build all these buildings and keep them maintained. But so we're not really a government. We're kind of like a city or a county, and then we're also like a small business because I only have 45 actually full-time employees, and then we have about 15 part-time, and then we obviously contract out thousands of jobs in terms of food and beverage, janitorial, parking, ticketing, and all of that. So, and our mission, vision, and the purpose for the PFD is to generate economic impact into the community. So we generate events that bring people to the community. They spend money while they're here. They stay in hotels. They shop. They dine. And then they go home. So they leave their money here, which is a great way to make money and save money for the citizens of Spokane, actually.
And it's great for our community as well. It's not just bringing people from outside. It's also bringing people downtown.
Yes.
From areas around the county. North Idaho. People from all over.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Yeah.
So thank you. And now the focus of today's Spokane County Spotlight is the Spokane Regional Sportsplex, also known as the Podium. But before we get into that, perhaps you can give us an overview of the other big projects the PFD is working on in 2021 and beyond. So I'd like to start with the First Interstate Center for the Performing Arts. How has that weathered the pandemic, and what can the community look forward to seeing in the future?
Yes, so during the pandemic, obviously it's lasted longer than we originally thought. We've been shut down for a little bit over a year, and my big concern the whole time was, as things kept extending, as the shutdown kept extending, my big concern was, please don't let us lose Hamilton, because Hamilton was on the books for 2021. As a matter of fact, it would be here right now. And so we were kind of holding on, and then obviously things changed a little bit for not the way we wanted, but the positive news there is I was concerned that we were going to have to wait years to get Hamilton back on the schedule. But we were actually able to book it for next year. So next May we will have Hamilton back on. We have a really strong Broadway series this year. assuming we get open here pretty soon, starting in October, we have Cats. And then we go all the way. We've got some really strong Fiddler, Anastasia, Mean Girls, Come From Away, and then, of course, Hamilton again. So we have a really strong season. So once we're back open, we have a lot to offer. And I think the Performing Arts Center will probably be the first to recover because it's a smaller venue. It's about 2,600 seats versus the arena that's over 10,000. And so once we can start opening a little bit more incrementally, that'll probably be the first building to reopen.
And do you just see it as the Broadway series, or do you see other events coming in as well?
No, yeah, definitely. We do a lot of other things in the First Interstate Center for the Arts. We do a lot of concerts, and we've just entered into an agreement with Oakview Group, which I can explain in a little bit more detail, which will help bring business to the arena and the First Interstate Center for the Arts. So I foresee a lot of concerts and a lot of different shows, as well as the Broadway series.
Well, I think that's exciting, and I think the First Interstate Center had just been kind of renovated, yes, just before the pandemic. So do you see the circulation system and all of that? And I'm going to ask that in each of the buildings.
Sure. Yeah. So we did just renovate that building. Had pretty much not been. We'd upgraded it a little bit, but it hadn't had an actual renovation since its original building for Expo 74. And one of the catalysts for it was we didn't have what I felt was appropriate disabled seating. I felt like that those in the community that are differently abled, when they came to the building, there was only one section of seating, and it was in the back. And so we wanted to, and then we had some seats on the side, but it just wasn't a great experience. And so that was the catalyst for, let's make that better. And then that turned into I think it was a $28 million renovation. So we added a hallway on the lower level. In the past, you had to go outside if you were in a wheelchair because there was no way to get down because of the steps and the slope. And so we added that, and so it's much bigger, better circulation space, multiple ways to get in now as opposed to before. So that's definitely going to help us when we reopen with social distancing and all the guidelines that we have to follow.
I think that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the convention center and kind of, how has that weathered the pandemic, and what do you see in the future for that?
Yeah, so the convention center we've been able to do a little bit of business over the last year. Even during the shutdown, we were approved to do some trainings that couldn't be done virtually. So we had the VA hospital in for several weeks. I think it was actually about 3 months where they did training for their staff. And then we served as a shelter during the fire season last year when their air quality was terrible, so we served as a shelter for that. Mm-hmm. We actually have, now we're able to do 25%, I think actually 50% up to 600. I actually have a banquet this Saturday in the convention center. We've got PNQ, which is Pacific Northwest Qualifier, mm-hmm. girls volleyball tournament. It normally comes in March. This year it's moved to May, and right now under the protocols we are able to host that event. So that'll be coming up here in a couple weeks. So we're starting to see a little bit of business. Of course, nothing like what we would normally see. But I'll tell you, 2022 was already a strong year for us, and now a lot of the business from 2020 and 2021 has moved into 22. So next year we're going to have conventions checking in and checking out, and another one checking in and checking out, basically for a year. So 2022 is going to be one of the stronger years we've had.
And that was an area, too, where you upgraded the ventilation system as well.
Yeah, so we received CARES money from the county, thank you so much, which actually, it was almost $2 million, and which enabled us to upgrade all of our facilities up into the protocols that were required in this COVID and post-COVID world. We are GBAC certified, which is the Global Biorisk Hazard. Basically, it's very complicated, but it's basically the highest standard of cleaning and sanitization and protocols. And so we have achieved that for all of our buildings. And part of that was to upgrade the HVAC system and touchless everything. We've put in new doors where you don't have to touch the door. It'll automatically open. Touchless points of sale, so you won't be exchanging cash, all that, touchless, the plexiglass. I mean, cleaning supplies. I mean, it's been huge what we've been able to do, and it actually is because of the CARES money. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, it's our pleasure because, I mean, as you know, as the commissioners, we wanted to make sure that, we could do everything we could to keep our community safe. And so I think, the community knowing that, can feel safe coming back to these facilities as they open. So
yes,
definitely appreciate that. So the last, building that I want to talk about before we get to the Sportsplex is the Spokane Arena. So that's been an active, arena since
Yes.
the pandemic has started. It seemed to be like it wasn't going to be active, and it has been. And then can you talk about what's the new concerts and events that we get to look forward to?
Yeah, so the arena was a homeless shelter last summer, and that there was enough shelter space in Spokane, but because of social distancing requirements, obviously they weren't able to have as many people in the shelters, so they needed a place for that overflow. And so the arena served as that last summer. And then we were an election site. There was expected, and it turned out to be record attendance for voting in the 2020 election. So the arena was an election site, and actually I have heard that it went so well that the county wants to continue to do that in the future, which will be great, a nice central location for people to come down and vote. And then we were a testing site. Chaz had a COVID testing site there for actually up until right now. And then we morphed it into a actual vaccination clinic a couple of months ago. So we have vaccinated, I think it's over 50,000 people already. An extremely smooth system. The Department of Health, the Spokane Regional Health District, Chaz, Providence, I think Multicare, Safeway. We've got a whole crew of different entities working in there, getting people vaccinated. So it's exactly what public buildings are supposed to do in a time like this, in a time of crisis. So it's been great to be able to do that.
And I have to commend you as the CEO to pivot to that and to make that happen, because not everyone would do that. And so I really credit you for helping take care of our community. And I will say that the vaccination site, my son has used it, and it's gone really smoothly. And I toured it. It's a great, great service that you're doing to our community. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's a great opportunity for us, because normally when we're open and we're booked, we can't do things like that, right? If we were open, we couldn't shut down the concourse for months at a time and do this, and we couldn't have shut down the area for the arena, the back area for a homeless shelter. They weren't in the whole arena; they were in the back area. So it was an opportunity for us to serve the community in ways that we aren't always able to. So we were very excited to do it.
Good. So let's talk about what exciting concerts and events we have coming up.
Yeah, so what I mentioned earlier is the Oakview Group is the owner of the new Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle and the Kraken NHL team, and then they also own and manage facilities across the country. So they're a big powerhouse in our industry. They are very aligned with Live Nation, who is the largest concert promoter in the world. And they actually reached out to us because they see Spokane as a great city, kind of on the verge of really exploding in a positive way. And they wanted to partner with us to help bring different concerts to the arena. So a lot of times right now, we don't have a lot of history with some really big pop acts like a Justin Timberlake or a Pink. It's hard to get them here because we don't have the history, and it's hard to get history when you can't get them here. And so we are in a partnership with Oakview Group that we are really excited about, where they're going to help route concerts to us. So concerts that play the Climate Pledge Arena, then they will route them to us. They have a lot of flexibility in creating the routes when concerts tour, and so they'll be able to put Spokane in the mix. So that's going to be huge for us.
That's very exciting.
And then they'll also be bringing shows to the First Interstate Center as well. Yeah.
No, well, that's exciting. So any concerts that are booked at this point?
I have two that are not announced yet.
Okay.
But two big ones that people are going to be really excited about. We have a concert on the books for August that, if we're able to be open to a full capacity, that's somebody who's never been here before, to my knowledge, at least not in my last 20 years, that I think the community will be really excited about. We did, of course, we announced the weekend. He performed in the Super Bowl, and then he went on sale in Spokane the next day. We sold, I think, 2,000 tickets in the first 20 minutes, and in Philadelphia they sold 3,000 tickets in the first 30 minutes. So we were right on par with a much larger city. So that's exciting, but a lot of good stuff. And we've everything that we had booked in 20 and 21. So things we had last spring, we moved to the fall. Then we moved from that fall to the spring. Then this spring we've moved again to the fall. So things have been moving. Only a couple of shows have actually canceled. The rest of them have all moved. So once we are open in both of those facilities, we're going to have we'll have everything we already had booked plus everything that's been rebooked. So
it's going to be very busy.
People will be, they've been in their house for a year, and they're going to be out every night, I think.
I love it.
Yeah.
That'll be great. Yes,
we're ready.
I think we all are ready.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. So let's, thank you for that diversion there and talking about the rest of the buildings with the Public Facilities District. So now let's start our discussion on the podium.
Yes.
So, the county started those discussions with a PFD, Spokane Sports Commission, and the city of Spokane about the podium many years ago now. And I'm excited that this dream is finally becoming a reality. Can you give our audience a little bit of an overview about the history of this project?
Yes, it has quite a history, actually, even predating me in my role. I think it's been about 15 years that it's been in the conversation, and the Spokane Sports Commission realized about 15 years ago that indoor track and field was something that we were missing, basically in the West. So indoor track and field is all of the venues that currently exist are on the East Coast or in the Southeast. It's very popular there. If you're west of the Mississippi and you're a runner, you have to travel east or southeast to compete. So there was this huge open, like, why don't we have this on the West Coast? And so it's obviously expensive to build a venue of this type, and it's very different from any of our other venues. And so it's expensive, and we needed partners. And so there was a lot of working and trying to make things happen, and it just kept sort of never coming together. And then in 2018, actually, what put us across the finish line, to use a track analogy, was the county coming to us and saying that they'd be willing to lend us the money or sell the bonds for us to $36 million that we needed to close the gap. So we needed to buy some property. So we had a couple people in the community that sold us their property. The city of Spokane gave us $5 million. The city parks department gave us the land, a part of the land. It used to just be a dirt parking lot overlooking the river, and now that'll be the south end of the podium. And then our state legislators, our local state legislators really came through. They brought me $1 million 2 years ago, $250,000 last year in the state capital budget, and then I was just awarded $775,000 or $774,000, excuse me, in this capital budget. So it is a true partnership, and I know once we're on the map and once we're open and people see what this building is, what's going to be most exciting is to get to talk about how we did it, because most cities and communities don't have all of these public entities working so well together, and we really are going to show true leadership to the whole world, honestly, on how we made this happen.
And it was a group effort, and you led the way. So again,
well, thank you.
Thank you. So when do we expect the completion of the construction of the podium?
So we're about 90 days out. So August of this year, it will be completed. And if you drive by, on the North Bank there between Washington and Howard, just south of Boone, you'll see the big building with the terracotta paint, gray and terracotta accent. And people are starting to be like, when did that pop up, right? You know how construction is. We broke ground in fall of 2019, but you can really see it now from all over. So we're getting ready to open in August.
That's exciting.
On time, on budget, everything's going great. That's
great. So what are some of the potential events that are going to be coming?
Yeah, so the intent of the building originally was, of course, for track and field. And so we have already announced our first big event in February of 2022. It's USA Track and Field Elite. And basically, these are the people who will have run in the Olympics. They will have just competed in the Olympics. Then some other just regular, like elite athletes that are well known in the industry. And then some up-and-comers in the USA Track and Field. So that's in February of 2022. We're working on actually some other really exciting track and field events. But what's great about our building is it's a hydraulically banked track. So it raises in hydraulics banks. You can run faster when it's banked. If you think about it, if you're running and you take the corner and it's banked, it kind of helps you. So we're going to be setting lots of records in that building. And then when it's not being used for track, the hydraulics bring it down flat. We put sports court over it, and we can do volleyball, basketball, karate. I mean, all the mat sports, gymnastics, all the martial arts. Really, other than football and soccer, I don't think that there's any sport we can't do in there. So it's going to be a game changer for Spokane.
It's very exciting for Spokane, especially for all the youth sports and all the sports that happens here in Spokane. So I understand that we do have a short video that highlights the podium. So let's roll that video right now. Wow, what a great video. What is the plan for attracting the big name events to the podium?
Yeah, so we have partnered with the Spokane Sports Commission. Sorry, I should have mentioned them earlier when I was listing off of all of our partners. But the Spokane Sports Commission, who, by the way, small but mighty group, they were named Sports Commission of the Year last year. So we are super lucky to have them as a partner and have them here in Spokane. So their job is to market and basically book the facility. And so we lost a little bit in the last year of being shut down because of travel. So governing bodies were working from home, they weren't traveling, but that has just recently opened up. And USA Track and Field was just in Spokane just this last weekend, and they toured the facility. They were extremely excited and impressed with how well we did in addressing anything that they would have as a concern. They only found one thing, and literally it was, we have an officials area that has a glass window, and they would prefer to have the glass not in there. That was the only thing that they found that we didn't do, that we did that wasn't like what they would love. And so the reason that we did so well is because prior to designing this building, we traveled around and we went to the Crossplex in Birmingham is kind of like the mothership of these venues. There was a Ocean Breeze on Staten Island we visited, and then the University of Michigan has an amazing facility. And I would say from my travels, our podium reminds me mostly of the venue at Michigan. So we were able to talk to them about all the different things that they would have done differently if they could rebuild. We were able to implement that in our design. And the USA Track and Field told us that we did a great job because literally everything that they want is ready to go.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So then one of the other questions I have is, how does the Spokane Arena, the convention center, fit in with your vision of the podium?
Yeah, so we're actually still trying to figure out, there's so many opportunities, and for every building we have built or renovated, something bigger and better has come out of it. So for example, with the convention center, we originally expanded the exhibit hall because we thought we would do more trade shows, which we did, but in addition, we ended up doing a lot of sports that we weren't anticipating. And that is actually one of the main drivers that kept us focused on trying to make the podium happen, because we saw how popular we were as a sports destination, youth sports. And so I think that the podium is going to, obviously a lot of the sports that are in the convention center will stay and then just grow into the podium. I think wrestling will probably move to the podium. Everything else will grow. And so those two buildings will work in conjunction. And then with the arena as well, it's right across the street. So we can foresee lots of different sort of events that we can now go after that would want to use both venues.
Very good. And so from the PFD's perspective, how much of an impact do you see the podium having on our local economy?
Yeah, huge. And so it's interesting because people have said, if you had known about COVID and the shutdown, would you have still done this? And it's like, absolutely. This is the best time to be adding yet another venue into our community that's going to generate a whole new set of revenue, right? So track and field is an industry that hasn't been here before. And so all of these track events, they generate thousands of hotel rooms, millions of dollars in economic impact. And, the economic impact people talk about, it's basically what I said earlier, people coming, staying in hotels, eating out at restaurants, shopping and dining, spending money here. And that actually keeps, in Spokane, the average is about $1,000 a year of a household savings in property taxes. So that money that comes in and it stimulates our economy, and then we don't have to be taxed. So it's yet another opportunity for us to bring money into Spokane at a time when we're really going to need it post-pandemic.
Yes, no, definitely. And so, will there be a grand opening for the facility? Kind of in this COVID environment, what do you foresee?
Yeah, definitely. Like I mentioned earlier, we have so many partners to thank, and we all definitely want to get together and celebrate what we were able to achieve during difficult times. And then we'll definitely want to do some sort of public open house so people can see the building as well. Of course, that will be probably a little bit later in the year when we're able to have larger groups. The podium is definitely going to be a spectator venue, and that people, when we have national championships, tickets will be on sale and people will be able to come buy tickets and go to the events. The Parks and Recs Department, we have a partnership with them, and they're going to be hosting their recreation leagues in this building that they've normally been hosting in the middle schools. And so in exchange for the land that they gave us, that we're going to have them using that. So it's not a venue that you can't bring your running shoes down at lunch and go run on the track. It's not that sort of public venue, but it will be public in the sense that we will have programming there for the public to enjoy.
Wow, thank you. So Stephanie, in our last few minutes here, are there any last messages that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'd just like to say a lot of people ask about, how we've held up during the last year. And from the very beginning, I have said to my board and my staff and to myself every morning in the mirror, we will not be a victim of this. We will not be a victim. And a lot of venues across the country, honestly, they literally shut down, they closed down, they laid off all their staff. But my goal was to not do that because I wanted to be able to use our buildings to provide a community service as well as keep my employees, intact. My employees are on work share, so they have some unemployment, and they do work for me part of the time. It takes a lot to keep these buildings going, right? You can't just shut the doors, and there's mechanics, and there's toilets, and there's all kinds of things that still need to be, kept going. But I think, the hospitality industry as a whole has obviously been hurt. Not just the businesses, but the employees. Most people in our industry work a couple of jobs, and they're sort of making ends meet. Generally barely, and now they've gone for over a year without. The community, I think, has been fantastic about supporting restaurants and all of that. But once we come out of this, we have a lot of making up to do. So I think as a community, we really need to come together. I know that we will continue to support those businesses, buy tickets to events, get out, in order to get there, obviously we have to get through this pandemic, which of course requires us to keep diligent with our masking and social distancing and getting vaccines and all that stuff. So we have a lot of power as people to get us through this, and I look forward to that day and we can celebrate and be reopened.
Well, and thank you for being creative, because it certainly did take someone, in leadership to be creative, to think of different ways of using those venues, that are public venues. So thank you for that, because you really have provided a great service to our community.
Well, thank you. It's all of our buildings, right? We own and operate it, but it is all of our buildings, so we should all get to benefit from it.
Well, Stephanie, thank you very much. I've enjoyed our discussion today, and I think our viewers have too, but I'm afraid that we've run out of time. I'd like to thank my guest, Stephanie Curran from the Spokane Public Facilities District. As a reminder, a video of today's Spotlight can be accessed on our Spokane County homepage and our Spokane County YouTube channel. I'm County Commissioner Mary Kuney. Thank you for joining us today on the Spokane County Spotlight.